And I think that looks perfect. So let's start seated. So coming into a seat that feels nice and supportive for the spine. And just letting the hips settle here, letting our breath slow down, letting the day just kind of dissipate. And we'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. Nice opportunity just to slow things down a touch. And then let's put our hands onto our thighs, palms down. We're going to use the arms here as a little guide to spiral the torso. So pick a direction and just start to give some big mobilization to the entirety of the torso. As you drift away from the whichever direction you're spinning towards, right? So we push into the opposite thigh and really try to accentuate that bit of movement. We'll obviously balance that back out as we go the second direction. And really try to use that arm or the arms maybe to get as much movement as we can out of the torso here. And then when you feel complete with this side, let's come back to a fully neutral spine and start the movement the other way. Again, using an arm to help accentuate, or the arms to help accentuate movement so that we get some nice full torso mobility. There we go. And when you feel like this side is balanced with the first, let's come back to a neutral spine and think about, actually, let's do this. Let's take our feet into a grounded place. So knees are bent, feet are grounded, hands to the shins. We'll do some cat cow from here. So I'll give you a little side view here. As you exhale, let's take a belly forward, chin up, middle of the back softens. And as you inhale, chin tucks, middle of the back rounds, tops of the shoulders round. Exhale, we pull ourselves forward. Think about belly button bursting forward like it's trying to push through the thighs. And then inhale, and we fall back. And as we start to move more and more in this cat shape, right, is the flexion shape, we can start to hang on the shins and really start to bring some additional movement into the shape. That's why I like cat cow from this seated shape so much, is we can really add some of that flexion, and then you can use the hands as you pull forward to add some extension as well. So we get to deepen both coins of the spinal articulation. Both coins. I don't know if that's the appropriate terminology there. One more time in each coin, each direction. And then we'll flatten ourselves out to a neutral seat and just transition to hands and knees tabletop. And from hands and knees tabletop, settling in, let's do a little bit of shoulder strength here. So we're gonna keep the arms straight, so no bend to the elbows, soften into the shoulders so that we hang and the sternum kind of hangs at the bottom of the shoulder capsule, and then push into the hands without any arm bend, and we just lift ourselves back up. So it's just shoulder mobilization here. We're gonna soften back down, and then we're gonna inhale back up. And we're just gonna do this a few more times. So again, this is not arm movement, this is shoulder movement. So the torso itself is going up and down. We're actually working the placement of the humeral head. So we're pulling out and then finding full approximation, pulling out and finding full approximation. And let's do that 2 or 3 more times. And then we'll come back to neutral. Curl our toes, really find that neutrality of the spine, neutrality of the head placement. Curl the toes, lift the seat, and find down dog. And as you come back into down dog, you may note right away the fatigue in the shoulders. Bend the knees and try to get that weight back into the feet, into the hips, so that the shoulders are not doing a lot of work. And then let's just walk ourselves forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. And exhale back into fold. Settle into that fold space. Let yourself just go into that fold space. Awareness drifts to the sacrum. We'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae. Finding our way into mountain and stacking here. Really letting the body feel tall, having the glute engagement, having the quad engagement, being rooted here. Sweep the arms up and overhead. Exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide our left foot straight back into lunge and just push that left heel back like you're trying to drive the strength into that leg. Take the bend out of that left knee so you're really strong in that left leg, and then splay the toes out on the right foot. With that toe energy, just pull yourself back forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide the right foot straight back. Splay those toes out on the right foot, but really press into that right heel. Right quad is active and strong, no bend, and then the toes on the left foot splay out nice and wide. And we use that toe energy to step back forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands and walk yourself into plank. From plank, wrist, elbow, shoulder stack. Think about getting yourself as strong as we can be through the glutes and the quads, just like we did in mountain, and then lower yourself down to your belly. We come down into our belly, set your hands right underneath the shoulders, squeeze the elbows in. Think about bringing the elbow energy like you're trying to pull the elbows to your hips. So hands are planted, elbows are pointed roughly up towards the ceiling, but then energize the shoulder blades so that you can push the elbows down towards your hips and really feel that shoulder capsule and how much it has to work to energize those elbows down. Where we put our attention makes such a difference in what musculature we recruit. Really try to drive that energy. Hold that for about 5 more seconds here. And then we relax. And as we relax, we just breathe. Hands can slide underneath the forehead, little crocodile pose. Give yourself early class check-in here, right? We're not quite a quarter of the way through class, but we're getting there. So let's call this the quarter away check-in. Just see how the shoulders feel, see how the belly feels, see how the breath feels, see if there's any restriction in the posterior chain, restriction in the anterior chain and the lateral chain. Give ourselves just about 10 more seconds here, just checking in, just seeing what needs the most focus tonight. And then when you're right, as you're ready, slide the hands underneath the shoulders, splay the fingers out nice and wide, bring some strength into the musculature above the knees, press yourself up to hands and knees, tabletop, from hands and knees, tabletop. Let's curl our toes. We'll rock ourselves back in a down dog. As you rock back in a down dog, think about that extension of the spine. Think about the pressure in the hands increasing to push the hips even higher into the shape. And then bring your awareness to the front of the mat. We'll walk forward. We'll find our way in a fold. From fold, slide your fingertips under the toe mounds. This can be under the toe prints if that feels more comfortable for you. But if we can slide those fingerprints under the toe mounds, perfect. And then let's inhale into half lift. As we come into half lift here, we have some restriction. We start to feel some of that posterior shoulder capsule start to pull potentially, lengthen potentially. And that drifts its way down into that deep subscapular tissue. And then exhale and release. Top of the head, let's go here. Grab opposite elbows and rock a little side to side. Think about taking that shoulder energy, that shoulder space that we just created and working it into lumbar space, most ideally, so that the entirety of the back of our body is letting go. Then awareness drifts to the sacrum. Let's roll ourselves up, vertebrae by vertebrae, stacking the spinal column back in a mountain, and finding that same level of engagement in the quads and the glutes that we found the first time we were here. Really thinking about a big, strong middle body. This time we're going to bring our hands together at heart center. And as the hands come together at heart center, take the elbows out. And then let's take them up to shoulder height. So we get elbows at shoulder height. The hands can break from the contact with the sternum if that feels better for the shoulders. But then really press together the hands like you're trying to find a meeting point on each side that is equal. Little isometric shoulder challenge here. And keep that, and we're gonna just sink our seat back maybe like 10% into chair. So as you drop down, there's a subtle, it's a very subtle because we're only 10%, right? But there's a subtle little contraction of the stabilization musculature around the shoulders. That's what we're looking for. And then think about squeezing the elbows towards the back of the room. So you're trying to take those elbows straight back here. And it's a completely different set of subscapular musculature required to make that pull happen from what we did when we were on our belly, but still working pretty hard. And then relax, sweep the arms all the way up and overhead, and exhale the hands behind your head. And now we have some nice fatigue in the shoulders, right? Just think about elbows squeezing back and broadening across this anterior chain. And go back to your glute squeeze, go back to your quad squeeze. Make sure we're not bowing forward. We're really keeping anterior and posterior chain neutral. And think about how we can just relax into the shoulders here. And then we're going to sink ourselves 20% into chair. A little more of that restriction starts to make its way known. Lift back up, sweep the arms up and overhead, and exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. And as you come back into this fold, just pay attention to how much that mid-back posterior chain is ready to just melt, and see if you can allow that to just melt into your shape. Maybe softening the hamstring requirement a little bit by bending the knees. And then let's slide our right foot straight back into lunge. And sweep your arms up and into crescent. Primary shape here. Set the back leg first. So think about getting that right quad strong, then bring your hands behind your head. And we're just gonna squeeze those elbows towards the back of the room. Don't allow that right knee to bend. It wants to, but we're staying strong in that back leg. And then sweep the arms up, break that hand connection, float the hands down to the mat, and we'll step forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Slide the left foot straight back. Find that leg strength. Sweep yourself up and into crescent. Hands come behind the head. Elbows squeeze back. Think about the shoulders getting broad here and the left knee staying fully active. Really maintaining that left heel energy, left toe mount energy. Nice neutral mid body. Sweep the arms up, the hands break, flip the hands down to the mat. We'll step back forward into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk yourself into plank. Wrist to elbow, shoulders stacked, glutes, core squeezed. Lower yourself down to your belly. Forehead's gonna come on the mat here. You can use your chin if that is the only way you can get here, but forehead is really what we'd ideally like to anchor ourselves with. And then we are going to take our hands behind our head for the third time. And this time, with the forehead anchoring us, we need to ensure that we flatten the back of the neck. So we take the chin and tuck it slightly, and then lift your elbows so that the elbows lift up to what feels like that same pole we were working towards the back of the room. And keep that quad flex on just like we always would. So I didn't cue that, but always have that quad flex on for low back protection. And then relax. Slide the hands underneath the forehead. And breathe here in a little crocodile pose. Now we're going to let the shoulders just unwind. So think about if the shoulders are not relaxing. Now we want the shoulders to relax. So if they're not relaxing, adjust into a shape where the shoulders can relax. Really think about what you need to do here to support shoulder relaxation. We'll give ourselves actually about 20 more seconds here. A little bit longer than we would normally transition here, but I really want all of this early work we've done on the shoulders to have an opportunity to reintegrate, find its way back into normal functionality. You're right when you're ready. Let's slide the hands underneath the shoulders. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop. First time to really check how we found that integration in the shoulder capsule. Curl your toes, lift your seat, find down dog. And press back into that depth. Then take your right foot and slide it straight back and behind you, three-legged dog, and we'll step the right foot forward and into lunge. Right foot lands, left heel grounds, left hand takes us to warrior two. Smooth in through the top of the shape. Align your torso. And then once you feel like the torso is aligned, we're going to bring the hands down to the hips. And keep the width. Really pay attention to that lateral edge of the right thigh here. So I'm always calling that out, but really pay attention to it tonight, in this shape at least. And then squeeze the shoulders back, lift the chin, but bring the chin to neutral, then lift the chin. And then think about the sternum going up towards the ceiling. So shoulders are back, sternum's going up. And then come back to neutral. And then chin tucks, shoulders round slightly forward. Pay attention to that lateral edge of the right thigh. And then blossom back out into traditional warrior two. Left heel spins up, both hands roll up to crescent. Float the hands down on the mat, and we'll step the right foot back and into down dog. Now I have a little bit of upper back space, thoracic spine space, push back, transition all the way into hip length, then sail your left foot straight back and behind you. And we'll step that left foot forward and into lunge. Right heel grounds, right hand takes us to warrior two. And we find the top of this shape first. Wide, big, expansive. Then the hands come down to the hips. Chin comes to neutral. So chin and sternum line up. And then we lift the chin. And then we send the sternum straight up, squeezing those shoulders back. Sternum launches towards the ceiling space here. Pay attention to that lateral edge of the left thigh, really keeping that wide. And then chin tucks, upper back rounds. And then we blossom back into warrior two. Right heel spins up, both hands reach up into crescent. Keep that back leg nice and strong as we do so. And float those hands down on the mat. And we'll step the left foot back and into down dog. Take that upper back space, transition into hip length. Bring your awareness to the front of the mat. We'll step or float forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale into fold. As you fold, thoracic shelf all the way to the base of the skull lengthening. Think about that upper back length settling into your forward fold. Generally, forward fold is so lumbar specific, but really think about the upper back elongating here. Then awareness drifts to the sacrum. We're going to roll ourselves up again. So stacking our spine once again slowly, all the way up. And into mountain once again. In mountain, palms roll forward, thumbs out, pinkies in. Shoulders just settle here. Breath is fluid here. Just think about the stability of your mountain pose. Remember, we want enough glute engagement. We want enough quad engagement so that we're fully stable. We'll give ourselves just another 10 seconds here, creating this stability in mountain. Inhale the hands together at heart center and slide your right foot straight back into lunge. Right foot lands. Right hand comes to the left edge, lateral edge of the left thigh, and the left hand is going to reach back into the twist. So now you have some deep thoracic rotation here. Lumbar obviously involved as well. Keep the right hand where it is and bring your left hand into traditional crescent alignment. And we still have some thoracic rotation here. Because we have that right hand planted, start to pull those right fingers into the thigh and squeeze that right shoulder back towards the back of the ring. And you'll feel how the front of the body starts to respond to that lack of slack. Then sweep the right arm up so that it mirrors the left. Float the hands down on the mat and step the right foot forward and into fold. Nice work. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold, and we'll roll ourselves up vertebrae by vertebrae, finding our way back into mountain. From mountain, the palms roll forward, thumbs out, pinkies in. Shoulder blades are active. Middle of the body is actively squeezing to stabilize. And then we'll inhale our hands together at heart center. Left foot slides back. As the left foot lands, create the stability of the shape. Keep that back knee nice and engaged. Left hand comes to the lateral edge of the right thigh. Right arm starts to reach behind you into the twist. Big upper back rotation. Then the right hand reaches up to traditional crescent alignment, right? Left hand stays where it is. Start to pull into those left fingertips and hug that left shoulder back. And just see how your body responds to that lack of slack. Then the left hand mirrors the right. Float the hands down on the mat and we'll step forward and into fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Roll yourself up vertebrae by vertebrae. Hands come together at heart center. Sink the seat back towards chair. Remember, knees and ankles are stacked, tailbone driving back, not knees forward. And then we sweep the arms out, fully express the shape. Push that tailbone a little bit deeper into this space. Rise up, turn the palms forward, and exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Plant your hands, walk yourself into plank. And from plank, stabilize, wrist, elbow, shoulders, feel the glutes engaged, feel that upper back work, and then slowly lower yourself down to your belly. Lot of work to create that stability on the way down. Plant your forehead, flex your quads, plant the hands, squeeze the elbows in. And then take the tops of the feet an inch or two off the mat. Now, surprisingly hard to do because of the amount of upper back work we've done. Upper back stability is so important in this foot lift, but really try to keep those elbows actively engaged. And then relax, slide your hands underneath your forehead and breathe a little bit for crocodile pose. So there's this CEO slash owner of this company, and been quite a successful company. Been doing it for about 20 years, made a ton of money. They have this huge office space in downtown, and he's leaving work. He pulls out of this parking garage. He waves at the parking attendant, and he turns right, and instantly as he turns right, he's in traffic. And he's just sitting there in traffic, kind of seething at the fact that this 25-mile drive home is going to take an hour and a half. We'll be here for another 30 seconds. And stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, kind of the entirety of the trip. He has this same anxiety within him. And an hour and a half later, he's traveled to 25 miles. He's at home, he gets out and he goes inside, and his live-in personal chef has made his favorite meal. When it feels right for you, as it feels right for you, hands slide underneath the shoulders. Bring some strength into the musculature just above the knees. We'll press ourselves up to hands and knees, tabletop. And from hands and knees, tabletop, let's once again curl our toes, lift our seat, and we'll find down dog. Press all the way back into the shape. Don't leave a single millimeter left of room. Really find the full depth, the full potential of the shape. Drive all the way into the full length. And then when you're right, send your right foot straight back and behind you and drive that right foot into the full length. Like you're getting the full expression of the shape, really putting yourself all the way through the depth. Then step your right foot forward and into lunge. If we land in lunge, let's sweep ourselves up into crescent. Take the hands behind the head once again. Put those elbows out wide. Think about the middle of the body getting strong. And then bring your torso down so that it's like an inch above your thigh. And then bring your torso right back up. Sweep the arms back up. Float the hands down on the mat and step your left foot 6 to 10 inches forward. So enough forward that you can ground your left heel. Then release your head into fold. Remember that the right knee is bent here. So we still have that right knee bend. Release your head.
Then slide back into your right hamstring. Head still, top of the head pointed straight down towards the mat. Right hamstring getting as much length as it can. And then bend your right knee, slide your left foot straight back so that it's all the way into full lunge once again, and sweep yourself up in a crescent. Find crescent, find the stability of the shape, create the anchoring points through the feet, and then float your hands down on the mat. Right knee is bent once again, and then we're going to take that bend out. So we slide back into the right hamstring. The left heel is lifted here. And push down into the big toe mound of the right foot. Then bend your right knee. Step your right foot back and into down dog. Drive all the way back into this down dog. Think about the full extension of this shape. Then the left foot extends straight back and behind you. Get as much length as you possibly can out of this. Drive from the handprints through the heel. Then step the left foot forward into lunge. Sweep yourself up and into crescent. Find the stability of the shape. Then the hands come back behind the head. Torso comes down and it's just an inch or two above the thigh. Then we draw ourselves back up. Fully sweep those arms. Float the hands down to the mat and step the right foot 6 to 10 inches forward, enough to ground the heel. Then drop the head into the shape. Left knee still bent. Get the head fully set, then slide back into the left hamstring. So we're setting the head first, so there's just a little bit less room in the posterior chain. So that as we straighten into that hamstring, we're really feeling the full tautness of the posterior chain. Then we straighten that, or bend that left knee, excuse me. Slide the right foot all the way back into full expression of runner's lunge and sweep ourselves up and into crescent. From crescent, float the hands down on the mat, then find your positioning and slide back into your left hamstring for a little pyramid. Side 2. Right heel is pointed straight up. Energy into the left big toe mound, holding and anchoring you here. And when you're comfortable, left knee bends, left foot steps back into down dog. And we have a lot of room. Push all the way back into the depth of the shape. Eventually you work your way to hands and knees tabletop. Flip the tops of the feet and sink back and into child's pose. As you melt into that child's pose space, really think about settling the upper body here. That's more or less, you've probably picked up on what we're doing, right? We started at the very top and we are working our way down from our neck, shoulders, mid back, low back, into the hamstrings. And that's probably going to be the last thing we do for the upper half of the body tonight. Last 10 seconds here. When you're right, when you're ready, we'll use our fingertips to pull ourselves forward to tabletop. And from tabletop, curl the toes, lift the seat, and find down dog. Push all the way back into the shape. Then step the left foot forward into lunge. As the left foot lands, walk the left foot to the left edge of your mat. So heel toe all the way to the left edge of the mat. Then really strongly plant the right hand. So it's my right hand is right in line with the left heel, essentially. And then we're going to take the left hand to the inner thigh of the left leg and start to press that left leg out. I'll give you a front view here too. So we're in a wide lunge, and then we're going to push into some width here and start to open up a little of the hip capsule. And then we'll release, walk that left foot back in line. So that's a more traditional alignment. And walk the left foot all the way over to the right hand. And then start to lay that left edge, lateral edge, down for a little king pigeon first. Right? And if king pigeon feels super accessible to you, we can start to lower ourselves down towards a more traditional pigeon. Forehead can come and rest on stacked hands. Forehead can rest on the floor. Looking for a little lateral edge. Now, again, if the king pigeon is enough, you're using and controlling the depth of the shape with the arms here. So you can push into the hands and take the tension off of that hip capsule, hip flexor. And we're going to be here just for another 10 seconds. When you're ready, right toes curl underneath you. Lift that right quad, and we'll step the left foot back into three-legged dog. So left leg's going to extend straight back and behind us. And then just bend that left knee, point the bottom of the left foot towards the floor on the right side of your mat. And then we'll release that left foot down, shift our weight forward to plank to reset, and then lift the seat back into down dog. Find the full depth of your down dog. Then we'll step our right foot forward and into lunge. Walk the right foot all the way to the width of the mat. Keep that left hand planted. That left hand super important for stability here. Then the right hand starts to push that right hip out nice and wide. I'll give you that front view again. Nice and wide into this pressure here. Left arm providing the stability to get this external rotation started. And then we'll release that right leg, walk the right foot back in line, step the right foot back into down dog. Excuse me. Walk the right foot all the way to the left side. If you step back, we're all good. We'll just make our way forward and step down again. And then that lateral edge of the right leg comes down to the mat for king pigeon. Doing too many things at once for my brain. So from king pigeon, remember you have the ability to control and pressurize. You can also lower yourself to your elbows. You can lower yourself to your forehead for a more traditional version of pigeon. Think about here, leveling out the hips. So key piece here is that we keep the hips level wherever we are. We want that flatness, like we could serve tea right off the sacrum. And we'll be here for just another 15 seconds. And then as you're ready, as you feel balanced, hands connecting, left toes sliding underneath us, sliding that right foot back into three-legged dog, bending the right knee, pointing the bottom of the right foot towards the left side of the mat. Then we'll release that right foot down, shift our weight forward into plank, lift our seat back into down dog, step or float our way forward into fold, inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. As you come into this fold, slide your hands behind your legs, calves, ankles, heels, whatever feels most comfortable. Compress with a little hand energy, the torso towards the thighs. Think about getting that depth of the fold with the added encouragement of the arms. We're going to hold this space, this room for another 5 seconds. Relax. Awareness drifts to the sacrum. We'll roll ourselves up and into mountain for the very last time. So we get into the top of this shape. Think about getting broad. Think about staying engaged. With the quad flex, think about getting tall. Use all of this space to get tall here. And we're just going to hold this space, this breath, for a few more brief rounds. Now we'll float the arms up and overhead. Exhale the hands down to the feet. Last standing fold of class. Let the low back, mid back receive the fold. And then we will release our seat to our heels, Malasana. And work from our seat, legs extended out in front of us. Think about getting a nice tall staff here. Utilize the length that we've offered the torso to get as tall as we possibly can. And then broaden out through the collarbones, lift the chin to neutral and pull the head back, retract the head back so that it's right in line. And then bend your knees maybe 20%. And keep the torso this level of engaged as you drift forward just to where you can go. And then once the torso is set, straighten the legs. And we're actually looking to get a little hip and wrap around potentially into the hamstring activation here. So torso is providing the anchor, even though the legs are on the ground, right? We're using the torso as the anchor because we've locked it in so tightly. And we're looking to create a little bit of engagement around the hips here. And then rebend your knees to 20 degrees. And slide your hands just to the base of your calves. And however you can grip the calves works, right? We're all going to have a little bit different geometry here in our calf and hand shape. But however you can grip the calves, grip onto the calf musculature. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to set the torso, push the head towards the front of the room, keep that back nice and flat. Think about the chin tucking back in, and then straighten the legs out. And this time we feel a little more of that hip musculature work up towards the low back. And we're just going to give ourselves about another 10 seconds here. And relax. Oof, that's some work. Let's work ourselves onto our spine. Well-deserved trip to our back here. Arms come out towards cactus. Let the legs do whatever feels comfortable. I'm going to suggest knees bent because of the amount of posterior chain work we've done on the upper back. But anything that feels appropriate for you, feel free to drift into that. And then start to rock your knees a little side to side. Eventually, we're going to come to the point where our knees are at neutral, and then walk our heels out or the pinkies out to the edge of the mat. So feet go to the edge of the mat, pinky toe edge to the edge of the mat, and the knees fall in together. And this is all about settling, relaxing, and letting the the back side of the torso relax into all the work we've done. And that is our key here. We just start to slowly breathe into that space. This man gets home, his live-in chef has prepared, it's not even cooking, it prepared his favorite meal. And he hears that that's what's for dinner tonight. He's excited. He goes to the kitchen table, dining room table, sits down. Chef brings over the food, puts it down in front of him. He takes his fork, he puts it in his mouth, he starts chewing it, and he calls his chef in and he's like, "Hey, did you change the recipe or something? Because it just doesn't taste right." Chef's like, "No, sir, we've done this 100 times in the last 3 years. We've made it the exact same way every single time. We are measuring down to the microgram to make sure everything is perfect." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he doesn't even finish the meal. He goes to bed and he's in bed and he's just riddled with this anxiety. He gets up the next morning, gets in his car, makes a left turn. Instantly, he's in traffic. 25-mile trip, sure enough, takes an hour and 35 minutes on the way in. He gets in and he just is not thrilled. He calls in his assistant and asks her to have catering brought in because he's hungry. He didn't eat much last night. And she goes to his favorite restaurant, orders his favorite meal from the favorite restaurant. Last 35 seconds here. And they bring in this catered meal for lunch and he's eating it. And he's like, calls back the attendant who brought the food over, who catered the food. And he's like, "Hey, did you guys change the recipe on this? It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't taste right." And they're like, "No, it's been this same family recipe for the last 150 years. We're very proud of that, and we would never change it. When you're ready, bring the knees back to the width of the ankles, so all the way to the width of the mat. And just let the knees fall out wide. The bottoms of the feet aren't together, right? Because the feet are wide, but the knees are also going to fall out wide here. And we're just going to breathe into the width here of the hips. So this shape is very similar to if the bottoms of the feet were together. The biggest difference is you don't have the support, right? Because when we have the bottoms of the feet together, they're supporting one another. You have to work a little bit harder in that abductor musculature to maintain the stability here. And when you're right, we're going to bring the knees back to neutral. We're going to walk all the way back in. So everything comes back to that roughly 2 fist distance, and then we'll start to sway the knees again. And this time you're welcome to sway the knees all the way to one direction or the other, whatever side feels most ideal, and just pause there. This twist won't be remarkably long here, but I do just want to have this opportunity to find this last little rotational balance here on each side. So he doesn't eat his lunch and he kind of gets to the mid-afternoon and he's not sure why. Maybe it's that he's so hungry. Maybe it's that nothing tastes good. Maybe it's that everything feels stressful, but he just can't take it anymore. He gets up, he calls his assistant in and he tells him that he's going to quit, going to leave his company. And he says, "You need to find a replacement for me." He gives a list of 3 different people. He says, "You guys figure this out. I can't do this anymore." He gets up and he leaves right in the middle of the day. And he gets in his car and he drives home 25 miles. It takes 26 minutes, no traffic. And he's like, kind of relieved. There's like a feeling that the anxiety that had been eating at him isn't eating quite as much. When you feel right, when you feel ready, knees are going to return to neutral. And then we'll let the knees fall over to that second side, whatever side we have left, and just settle in here. So he's sitting home in the middle of the day and he's really enjoying this time. And he starts to think, what were the things that I always wanted to do that I haven't done? And he remembers back as a little kid, his uncle had sent him a postcard with this painted elephant. And he'd always wanted to see these elephants. And his uncle had been in India. And they had painted this elephant for one of their festivals. And he gets online. Last minute tickets are certainly not out of his price range. He buys a last minute ticket to India. He drives to the airport, gets on a plane, and 18 hours later, he's in India. And while he was flying, he was thinking. He was thinking about how much better he feels without the responsibility at work. He calls his assistant and he says, I want you to sell everything I have. I want you to sell my house. I want you to sell my car. I want you to sell every possession I have. And his assistant's like, are you sure? He's like, I'm absolutely sure. You keep 15%, put the rest in my account, and we're all good. And so that's what the assistant does. And as he gets off that phone call, he feels even lighter. When you're right, when you're ready, needs return back to neutral. Kneecaps towards the ceiling, eyes closed, awareness drifts within you. Ask yourself if there's anything you want, if there's anything you need, if there's anything that would benefit you before Shavasana, and offer that. And he has nowhere to go. He's carrying these 2 suitcases and he realizes he just sold everything he owns. He looks down at both of his hands carrying these suitcases and he just lets them go and he just walks away. He has no direction he's going, but he sees out in front of him this mountain range, the Himalayas. When you're right, when you're ready, when it feels good within you, completely relaxed into a shape and state where you can appreciate Savasana. And after a few days, he makes it to the base of the mountains and he starts to go up. First, it's a road, then it's a path. Then he's scrambling, and then he's climbing up a sheer cliff face. Weeks have gone by. And he crests the top, pulling himself over this cliff edge. And he looks down at his clothes and they're tattered. And he starts shivering. Just completely releasing here into your version of Shavasana tonight.
So he's shivering violently on the summit of this mountain. And all of a sudden, he feels this blanket being wrapped around him. He looks up, and it's this old man. And the old man helps him to his feet, brings him over to a little hut where he has this fire going. The old man looks at him and says, "What are you doing here?" And he says, I'm not sure. I sold my business, or I gave my business away. I'm not sure. Something called me here." And the old man says, "You look hungry." This man starts thinking, he's like, I haven't eaten in weeks. It hits him, he's starving. The old man pulls out this plate of this gruel and plops it down in front of him. And he points at it and he says, "Eat." Start to bring some movement to your fingers and your toes. And this man's looking at it, and he has had the finest meals on the planet. He looks at this gruel and is just disgusted. He is trembling as he puts his spoon down. He doesn't want to be rude. He puts it in his mouth, and it tastes amazing. It tastes absolutely incredible. He finishes it. He asks for a second bowl, and he feels warm and loved and taken care of. Movement into your wrists and your ankles, up into your elbows and your knees. And this huge smile bursts across this man's face. And the old man is like, "What are you smiling for? You almost died on a mountain. If I wasn't here, you'd be dead for sure." Movement into our shoulders and our hips. Movement into our head and our neck. And then the entirety of the body starts to move, starts to explore the space around you. The man says, I found what I'm looking for. I'm at peace, maybe for the first time ever. This is the greatest achievement of my life. And the old man just starts laughing. When it feels right for you, as it feels right for you, we're going to transition from the shape we are in back into a seat. And from the seated space, our spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes closed. Let's find a place where our palms can be up. And this old man is just laughing, just rolling, laughing. He can hardly breathe. He's laughing so hard. And the man looks at him and he's like, why are you laughing at me? I've achieved peace. And the old man says, "Well, peace you may have achieved, but the only thing you've been able to do is enjoy your dinner." Your next inhale, let's bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days and on throughout the end of the year, can you remind yourself, peace, peaceful mind is just the beginning. And there's so much more you can create and offer for the world around you. See how that changes your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of tonight's practice and for being you. Namaste.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. Appreciate the heck out of you.
You too.
Have the most beautiful week. I will see you here on Sunday if you want to recharge. And we'll do this again next Monday. Love you guys. Mwah.